You probably already have an existential crisis, but today I will give you many more by exploring all 8 tiers of the Apocalypse Iceberg. Each entry will be assigned to one of 3 categories, which are nature space, human cost, and sci-fi. Some scenarios on this list might happen in the future, while others will remain fiction for eternity, so don't expect that everyone on here has a real possibility of happening. That being said, please get comfy, fix yourself a nice, maybe even strong drink, and let's explore the apocalypse. Supervolcano. Our planet is home to 20 known supervolcanoes, with most notably the Yellowstone caldera, located in Yellowstone Park. Supervolcanoes get their name due to their extreme measurement of Volcanic Explosivity Index, or VEI, which is an index that indicates the power of a volcanic eruption. The VEI scale is logarithmic, meaning that every level on the 0 through 8 ladder is 10 times stronger than the previous one. VEI 8, which is the highest on the scale and is caused by supervolcanoes, introduces the super eruption. An eruption that releases at least 1000 cubic kilometers of magma, or 240 cubic miles. The most recent eruption of a supervolcano happened 27,000 years ago at Taupo, located at the center of New Zealand's Northern Island. This launched an enormous amount of debris into the atmosphere, which caused the entirety of the southern hemisphere to cool down significantly. While the chance of an eruption this scale is slim, its implications could be catastrophic for our planet and could cause human extinction. Not only would an eruption this big cause massive destruction, it would also cause a rapid decrease in global temperature, resulting in a volcanic winter. This is an abnormally cold period that will likely lead to widespread famine and a fatal disruption of our population. Pandemic. This scenario is one that humanity has experienced many times, as we have had multiple worldwide pandemics, with notable diseases such as the bubonic plague, influenza, and COVID-19. A pandemic occurs when an infectious disease rapidly spreads across large regions, and eventually entire continents. If a highly contagious, extremely stealthy, and fatal disease were to cause a worldwide pandemic, it would likely lead to mass extinction. We have already seen what kind of chaos a disease with flu-like symptoms can cause, so just imagine the chaos with an even deadlier disease. Sun death. In about 5 billion years from now, the Sun will evolve into a bloated red giant and will absorb Mercury and Venus. Things won't be pretty for our planet either, as the scorching heat will boil the entire Earth. The death of our Sun is inevitable, but it's extremely unlikely that humans will be around by then. Research states that the Sun grows 10% in brightness every billion years, meaning that eventually our oceans will evaporate and harvest will become impossible. After this, the surface of the Earth will be too hot for any organism to live. Global anarchy. Global anarchy is a scenario in which the government diminishes on a worldwide scale. Such an event is only possible if millions of people decide to stand up against global authority and eliminate it, which could then lead to multiple possible catastrophes. A common hypothetical catastrophe or thought experiment is the proliferation of nuclear weapons, since global anarchy would remove all laws and restrictions surrounding the testing, development, and usage of them. You can probably guess what this will lead to. Nuclear warfare. Nuclear warfare is something we have been close to many times. All it takes is political tension or simply miscommunication, and a nuclear warfare could happen. There have been many efforts to reduce the number of nuclear weapons, but they still remain a prevalent global threat. It is truly depressing to realize that the press of a button could mean the end of civilization. The aftermath of a nuclear attack is a nuclear fallout, which will make large parts of our planet uninhabitable, due to radiation poisoning and mass starvation. Deep Impact Event. A deep impact event refers to a catastrophic event that features a collision between astronomical objects, resulting in mass destruction on Earth. 65 million years ago, a devastating asteroid impact made the dinosaurs go extinct, so the same could happen to us in the modern day. If a large celestial body were to hit Earth today, it would cause dust and smoke to rise in the atmosphere, preventing sunlight from reaching us. This will cause the global temperature to drop, and it would mean the end for most types of harvest, resulting in global famine and eventually human extinction. If you ever want to feel down, I suggest you watch Melancholia, a movie from 2011 that explores how people react to finding out that a massive planet is going to collide with Earth. It is genuinely one of the darkest movies I have ever watched, and I will never forget the terror I felt watching it. Seeing an event like this made me truly realize how helpless we are, considering the size and the hostility of space. Global warming. There's no doom scenario more prevalent in modern media than this one. Global warming is known as the long-term heating of Earth's surface, and there's a lot of human activity that speeds up this process. Burning fossil fuels and cutting down large quantities of forest releases carbon dioxide in our atmosphere. Carbon dioxide absorbs and radiates heat, warming our Earth's surface and thus increases our average global temperature. The constant increasement of heat, but also the many natural disasters that come with global warming, will result in an uninhabitable planet. Errant black hole. This entry refers to a scenario in which a black hole comes into our solar system unseen. A black hole is essentially an extreme dense region in space where the gravity is so strong that nothing can escape its orbit. If a hypothetical rogue black hole were to enter our solar system, it would result in the destruction of Earth, but also of all other planets and the Sun. Let's say this hypothetical black hole is Cygnus X1, a black hole located in the Milky Way, 7,200 light-years from Earth. If Cygnus were a few light-years away from Earth, it would disrupt our orbit and all of the other orbits from our neighboring planets and the orbit of the Sun. Since an enormous amount of debris would orbit Cygnus, we on Earth would experience many asteroid collisions. Eventually, bigger celestial bodies will smash into Earth, destroying the planet completely, before its entirety will be swallowed by a black hole. Supersolar flare. A solar flare happens when the Sun's magnetic field gets tangled, causing it to release an explosion of magnetic energy. If a solar flare is powerful enough, it can trigger a geomagnetic storm, which will disrupt most, if not all, modern technology. Electricity will shut down worldwide, and important generators and systems could suffer irreversible damage, which would send us back to a medieval era. Society will likely collapse, and stress and chaos will spread. Megafauna. Megafauna could lead to the apocalypse in many ways, but the most likely one would be where a species of animal evolves to become bigger and stronger. If such a species would evolve and reproduce with an uncontrollable speed, it could destroy our harvest and food supply, causing mass starvation. Another slightly more supernatural scenario would be the arrival of megafauna from the ocean, in a Godzilla-like scenario. If large and strong enough, it could completely wipe out cities and all other man-made structures. Grey Goo Scenario. This is a hypothetical scenario in which we are able to create molecular nanotechnology, or nanobots, that self-replicate by consuming matter. The nanobots have the ability to duplicate, so the amount of nanobots will keep increasing, with the increasement becoming faster the more nanobots there are. When it has consumed all forms of matter not important to us, it will start to consume entire ecosystems, cities, and eventually the entirety of Earth, with nothing in their way to stop them. After they consumed Earth, they will consume all the matter in the solar system and eventually all the matter in the entire galaxy. It is important to understand how quickly future technology will reach a point of no return, meaning a point at which human interference is not going to change the technology its destructive path. It seems that such a point is often reached quicker than one might realize, as AI technology is unpredictable, especially when said technology is self-learning or self-replicating. Zombie apocalypse. If there was a pathogen, chemical or radioactive substance that could reanimate deceased humans into living zombies, a zombie apocalypse might occur. Let's use Walking Dead logic and assume that if you were bitten by a zombie, you would die due to the infection, and then you would turn into a zombie after your death. Like the Grey Goo scenario, this would cause the zombie virus to spread quicker and quicker until there are no live humans left on Earth. When it comes to dealing with zombies, a few might be manageable, but dealing with hordes the size of 1,000,000 zombies is impossible, as they are hungry for human flesh and will keep going no matter what. The danger level of a zombie apocalypse is of course completely dependent on how the zombies behave, but most scenarios would eventually lead to the end of the world. Let's hope that if it happens, we get Walking Dead zombies instead of ultra-fast World War C ones. Rogue Planet. A rogue planet is a planet that does not have any gravitational pull to an interstellar object, which causes it to travel through space without any trajectory. A planet like this could cause two cataclysmic scenarios for planet Earth. The obvious one is collision with Earth, which would cause mass destruction. Then there's a scenario in which a rogue planet does not collide with Earth, but disrupts its orbit with the Sun. Our planet will then move further and further away into the void, where there is nothing but empty space. The global temperature will keep dropping, since we will have no sunlight anymore. Food will stop growing, and eventually everything on Earth will freeze permanently. Alien invasion. Space is extremely vast, making the chance of extraterrestrial life likely if we were to ignore factors such as the Great Filter. The Great Filter is a theory that states when life on a planet reaches a certain point in technological advancement, that they either cause their own destruction, or that an outside force causes the inhabitants of said planet to go extinct. This idea states that advanced alien life is rare, if not impossible. If there was an alien race that somehow bypassed this Great Filter, and if they were to invade Earth with nefarious intentions, the results could be catastrophic. If their technology is strong enough, they could erase humanity in its entirety or enslave us. A super alien civilization might see humanity as only a small obstacle that can be removed by just clicking a few buttons. Gamma ray burst. A gamma ray burst is an extremely strong energetic explosion that is released during a supernova, the colossal explosion of a star. This burst releases electromagnetic radiation, which is deadly for us since it can damage and destroy our DNA. Fortunately for us, all GRBs that have been detected so far originated from outside the Milky Way, which is too far to hurt us. If a GRB within a few light years were to hit Earth, it would destroy almost the entire planet. We wouldn't even know it has happened because it travels with the speed of light, meaning it would hit us at an instant. AI Takeover. This is a scenario that has gained more popularity over the recent years due to the improvement and rise of AI technology. We have programs like ChatGPT that scours the internet for you and provides you with accurate information, but also more advanced systems such as the Tesla autopilot function that makes a car drive itself. AI technology is not yet at a point at which it could take over humans, but the near future could bring us to that point. If AI became advanced enough and it were to become dominant over us, the results could be cataclysmic. This would start with AI taking over the entire human workforce, simply because advanced AI would be more efficient and nimble than a human could ever be. AI will eventually be able to duplicate and improve itself, to a point where this form of digital evolution and multiplication becomes too powerful for humans to handle. If AI were then to become malevolent towards humans, they could easily take over systems of mass destruction and eradicate humanity. Internet collapse. Besides leaving all of us with nothing to do, the potential collapse of the internet could be dangerous. Similar to a solar flare, many systems would cease to work worldwide, changing modern society in multiple ways. Internet collapse could spread a massive amount of panic, since many modern financial systems require the internet. Your credit card and debit card would become useless, and wireless transfers become impossible. Riots and mass hysteria concerning our societal crash could cause many deaths, but other than those scenarios, internet collapse would not propose any physical threats. Incidental asteroid redirection. This scenario could be the consequence of humanity trying to harvest asteroids. Asteroid mining has not been done yet, but it could be a promising future space endeavor. Asteroids are known to contain many valuable minerals such as iron, platinum and gold, amongst many others. It could be that we accidentally guide the asteroid towards Earth, which would result in a human-caused deep impact event. Dinosaur Takeover. Not dissimilar to the concept of Megafauna, Dinosaur Takeover refers to a scenario in which humans resurrect an extinct species that eventually dominates us and causes a threat to our survival due to starvation and potential hostility. Simulation Shutdown. Let's say that we do live inside a simulation. At this moment in time, we would have no way of knowing who runs the simulation, and it's likely that we can't even perceive anything outside of it, as it is simply too complex for us to understand. This concept itself proposes a million ways for us to be deleted from reality, because a simulation could be shut down in many ways. Maybe our simulation will end because its data will become too big to progress, or maybe a glitch in the matrix will make the entire system fail. Perhaps the world or reality of our creators undergoes one of the events on this iceberg, and with their destruction our simulation ceases to exist. It might be comforting to know that if this ever were to happen, that we would not notice it, since it's likely our current consciousness can only exist if the simulation is online. The Big Freeze. The Big Freeze, or heat death, is a scenario that will happen when all sources and forms of energy in the universe have reached entropy. Entropy is a concept in thermodynamics that helps us understand why energy cannot be preserved forever. Imagine if you were tasked to pass a handful of sand between you and two people while trying your hardest to not lose any sand in the process. At first you might be successful, but eventually someone might get tired, or someone makes a mistake, or an outside factor such as a gust of wind causes you or another person to lose a bit of sand. If you continue this process of passing the sand, you will eventually have no sand left, which would be entropy at its maximum. Since there is no sand left, your task is over, proving that energy preservation eventually stops. This is how all forms of energy in the universe work. Energy gets produced, a certain task that requires said energy happens, and in that transfer not all energy is preserved. This means that there will be a time at which no fuel in the universe remains. This happens when all forms of energy have reached equilibrium, meaning that it's impossible for them to produce any more energy. Heat everywhere will reach a balance and all forms of matter will freeze, including our planet. The Big Rip. The universe is always expanding in space. Our cosmos gets bigger and the space between stars and galaxies does as well. Gravity is there to protect us and other celestial bodies from this effect, as it prevents celestial bodies to be ripped apart by expanding space. If this cosmic expansion ever were to accelerate to extremely high speeds, it could rip apart everything in the universe, as gravity won't be strong enough to hold everything together. Everything down to single molecules will be ripped apart, making it impossible for even small molecular structures to exist, meaning that virtually nothing in our universe will remain. Strangelet. A strangelet is a hypothetical particle that has the power to destroy all life on Earth. Strangelets are made up of strange matter, which is different than other forms of matter, as its stability and energy levels are ultra efficient. This could cause other forms of matter to emulate its state, causing all matter that isn't strange matter to become strange matter. It is theorized that massive neutron stars contain strange matter. If a strangelet particle were to leak out of a neutron star and made contact with Earth, all of Earth's matter could be restructured, similar to the Grey Goo scenario. Rogue experiment. This entry refers to a hidden scientific experiment gone wrong and having catastrophic impacts. This experiment could be the testing of a new disease or virus, or anything that could have a detrimental worldwide influence. Man-made black hole. If scientists were to create a black hole, it would answer a lot of fundamental questions about quantum physics. There has always been the fear that the LHC, which is the Large Hadron Collider, the largest particle collider in the world, would create a black hole. A supercollider slams protons together at velocities nearing the speed of light, which is great for research. But creating an actual black hole would require billions of times more energy than the LHC can currently produce. It is not surprising that technology is not advanced enough to create a small mass with the density of an entire planet. It is likely impossible, but a particle accelerator could theoretically create a tiny black hole that, if strong and persistent enough, could eat up the entire Earth. Time paradox. A time paradox is a fictional concept that can occur when traveling back in time. Time travel is incredibly complex, and there are many different ways in which it could work. Most forms of media warn us against changing the past, since it can alter the present and the future in dangerous ways. A famous example would be Back to the Future, in which Marty McFly accidentally changes the past, which causes his parents to never meet, which would then mean he would have never been born. This plot is similar to the Grandpa Paradox, which is a thought experiment in which you travel back in time and kill your grandpa. This raises many red flags, because how could you have been born in the future if you killed your grandpa in the past? Creating such a paradox would cause our reality to fall apart, essentially destroying it. Changing the past could also have more direct consequences. You might be familiar with the thought experiment that questions if you would kill baby Hitler if you were able to go back in time. The majority of people always choose yes, but a common argument against killing baby Hitler is that if World War II never happened, an even bigger, more deadlier war with nuclear weapons would have occurred later, likely during the Cold War era. It is safe to say that a nuclear warfare on this scale would have ended the world. You can take solace in the fact that if time travel were to exist, you probably would not be able to change the past. You would be able to witness the world in a different time, but only in spectator mode, as you wouldn't be able to interact with objects and people from the past. Vacuum decay. We often perceive space as a vacuum, meaning it is devoid of matter. It is rather a near-perfect vacuum, meaning that even billions and billions of light years away from the nearest galaxy, tiny particles of energy are still floating around. Scientists believe that it's possible to create a vacuum that is even emptier than the one that is in deep space, but it's unclear how to achieve this. If such a vacuum were to be created, the consequences for the universe and us on Earth would be dire. The difference in energy in space and a new, emptier vacuum could cause a bunch of new matter to come into existence and may override the current laws of physics, creating a completely new set of unknown laws. The false vacuum in the universe would collapse and a wall of energy would come our way, destroying everything in its path. Polar reversal. Reversal of the Earth's magnetic poles is inevitable, as there have been 183 reversals in the last 83 million years. The last one occurred 780,000 years ago. If a polar reversal were to happen today, it would take over 1,000 years for the poles to stabilize again. During this time, our electromagnetic field will be weak and radiation from space could harm us. The likeliness of skin cancer increases, electricity and power grids will black out, and some regions on Earth will become completely uninhabitable. This would then cause societal unrest and might lead to the collapse of it all. The Singularity. Singularity refers to a point in the future at which technological growth becomes uncontrollable, likely ending humanity. We might eventually create a super AI that is so strong that we cannot comprehend it, while it improves and develops itself further and further. This AI could then help humanity upload their minds into a supercomputer, essentially creating a simulation. This would end civilization but not humanity. Perhaps this is a future solution for humanity to continue existing after our planet becomes uninhabitable. Rotational malfunction. Rotational malfunction refers to the hypothetical situation in which the Earth stops spinning. This could have many catastrophic consequences, with most notably geological ones. Rotational malfunction will completely change the climate, causing massive storms and high-speed winds. It could also lead to earthquakes and increased volcanic activity. Besides geological issues, this scenario would also cause societal, mental, and social distress, since we would lose the day-night cycle. In this scenario, one half would constantly experience daylight, and the other constant darkness. This would destroy our circadian rhythm and general sense of time, which will likely lead to society being ripped apart. Parasitic Assimilation. Parasitic assimilation could happen when an intelligent parasite starts infecting humans. Parasites are not uncommon in both animals and humans, but not to this extent. For parasitic assimilation to occur, there must be a parasite, presumably extraterrestrial, that is able to take complete control over humans and that has the ability to spread rapidly through airborne or waterborne spores. These parasites will then be able to communicate with each other and spread like a zombie virus. The most unsettling idea is that the parasite inside you will have to keep your body alive in order to function. This apocalypse is similar to the one in the Last of Us franchise, with fungi being the parasite. Lunar Impact. The moon's orbit with the Earth is decaying slowly, but at a non-concerning speed. This entry refers to a scenario in which this process speeds up, to a point at which the moon has no orbit with Earth anymore. This would likely then cause the Earth to have a destructive collision with the moon. If this scenario were to be a near miss, you better say goodbye to the tides in our ocean. This would disrupt the habitat of many oceanic life forms such as crabs and mussels, which results in a disruption in the entire oceanic ecosystem, since they are part of the diet of other forms of life in the ocean. This basically sets off a dangerous chain reaction, one that could, potentially, kill us all. CW7 failure. You might have heard of CW7 if you have watched Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer is a post-apocalyptic movie from 2013 where we witness a future where a failed climate change experiment caused a new ice age. The only survivors of the apocalypse live on the Snowpiercer, a large train that was built to travel all around the globe. This train is very futuristic, but it's divided in classes that range from poor to rich, which causes an uprising in the movie. CW7 was a compound that was shot into the atmosphere to reflect the sun, but this turned out to be too effective. The planet froze and life on Earth stopped existing. Maybe our future is similar, where some technology that is used to reverse global warming works too well. The Happening. This scenario originates from a 2008 apocalyptic thriller under the same name. In The Happening, plants collectively launch airborne toxins that rewire the human brain, causing people to unalive themselves. They release these toxins as an anti-defense mechanism against human pollution. These toxins affect the central nervous system in the brain, which causes people to exhibit erratic and self-destructive behavior. While the concept only exists within this movie, scientists have not deemed it completely impossible. The Happening explains that the deadly toxins are similar to the red tide, which is a real-life outbreak of phytoplankton that releases dangerous toxins. One of the toxins it produces is domoic acid, which mimics glutamate, a molecule in our brain that causes our nervous system to function. If you were to consume too much of this toxin, in clams or scallops for example, it would get into your brain and will keep on firing synapse connections. This will cause nausea, disorientation, and short-term memory loss. Consuming too much of it will kill you. Ultrafauna. Ultrafauna is the upgraded version of Megafauna, meaning that it proposes creatures of incomprehensible size. These creatures are leagues beyond monsters such as Godzilla or the Bloop, as their habitat is likely on a galactic level. A creature like this would see Earth as nothing more than a small floating rock, as it will be able to destroy it in less than a second. There have been ideas and concepts of life in space itself, especially since we have discovered that certain forms of life can survive in the vacuum of space. A forgotten example would be the NASA's Apollo 8 space squid photo, which had many people believing that NASA had accidentally photographed an enormous space squid. This is likely a camera artifact, but I still have hope that it's an eldritch monstrosity. Cthulu Awakens. Speaking about eldritch horror, we have the concept of Cthulu Awakens. Cthulhu is a fictional monster created by writer H.P. Lovecraft, the inventor of cosmic horror. His most famous short story, The Call of Cthulhu, was published in 1928 and describes Cthulhu as colossal and monstrous, with characteristics of a sea monster. Cthulhu's description is not very detailed, but the mere sight of it causes people to go insane. Maybe in some universe or reality, practicing the right dark ritual will summon Cthulhu. Alternate humanity. An unknown alternate humanity living on an exoplanet is a common concept in science fiction. There are at least 3 possibilities for how this has happened. 1. An ancient human civilization that once lived on Earth found an effective way of space travel and decided to inhabit an exoplanet after finding one with similar or even better conditions than here on Earth. 2. We have a very limited understanding of intelligent life, and the humanoid form turns out to be the optimal form of life. This makes it so that aliens that look like humans live on other Earth-like planets. 3. We live in a multiverse, and there are an infinite amount of dimensions in which intelligent human life exists. These alien humans might be similar to us, but there exists a real chance that their technology is far more advanced, since the universe itself is extremely old compared to the time span of civilization on Earth. Since this alternate humanity might share our philosophy that unknown is bad, they might decide that they will invade our Earth by either destroying or enslaving us, or by using us for some other purpose. Tainted Atmosphere. This entry refers to the consequences that will happen if the composition of our atmosphere were to change. As you might know, we've been actively changing the atmosphere since the Industrial Revolution, causing an increasement in greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which in return traps more heat and warms the Earth. It seems easy to overlook, but a tainted atmosphere has way more consequences than just climate change. The ways organisms evolve and mutate might change. There could be technological failures, and the air could become so polluted that it's not safe to breathe it anymore. Society will collapse, and mass hysteria will arise. Cognitive Massacre. This entry, and many others following it, are part of SCP lore. SCPs are fictional anomalies that have to be protected from civilization, as their properties and design can be deadly or even catastrophic. Cognitive Massacres refers to SCP-571, an anomaly that has the potential to destroy the world. 571 is held in a high-security containment room far away from any form of civilization. It resembles a complex pattern of lines with a dangerous effect. When a person looks at 571 for even a second, they will start searching for something to draw on. They will then become infected and will proceed to copy the pattern until they recreated it. The affected person will seek out other humans and attempt them to feel the drawn pattern. If this is successful, the newly infected victim will immediately attempt to copy the pattern. If an infected person fails to infect someone within an unknown amount of time, they will experience psychological deterioration. The infected person will eventually die of thirst as they neglect their basic needs while trying to infect people that are already infected. SCP-571 basically spreads like a zombie virus, infecting anyone who looks at a copy of the original, or the original itself. It is hard to evaluate the real-life validity of this anomaly, but I like to believe that there is a hypothetical pattern that would work the same as SCP-571. Time Collapse. Our current understanding of time is supported by the theory of relativity, which states that time is relative and can be affected by gravity and velocity, but it does not stop or break down. That being said, there are still many concepts involving time that we do not understand, so when it comes down to black holes for example, our understanding of time gets thrown out of the window. Time collapse is thus a theoretical concept proposing a reality in which time freezes indefinitely, causing every particle to stay in place for eternity. Since time has now collapsed, reality ceases to exist. That is for us, at least. Hyperintelligent Disease. This entry proposes a narrative in which a disease is so dangerous that it can mutate and evolve as a reaction to our attempts to destroy it. Think of an extremely effective plague ink disease that can become more immune to vaccines, while it mutates to have more deadly symptoms. If such a disease were to spread quickly and efficiently, it could easily wipe out humanity. Infernal Purge. An infernal purge would be an extreme form of mass hysteria that causes mass violence all over the world. Mass hysteria is triggered by psychological factors that often go unexplained. It could be triggered by fear or perhaps a media influence. Infernal Purge would be a real threat to humanity, especially if something causes everyone to become hungry for violence. Mass death will obviously occur, and no matter what happens, the world will never be the same again. Dimensional Shattering. Dimensional shattering is a scenario in which parallel universes will start to collide with ours. We don't know whether parallel universes exist, and therefore we don't know the nature of their potential existence. One theory suggests that our universe could overlap with another, as this other parallel dimension exists within a completely different realm than ours, making it unperceivable to us. That is until dimensional shattering occurs, which will probably start in the form of unexplainable objects entering our reality. Reality will become less recognizable by the minute until it is completely destroyed. Thaumaturgic Revolution. In this scenario, magic and supernatural powers turn out to be real. These powers are accidentally discovered and turn out to be uncontrollable. Since we have no way of knowing the limits of this newly discovered power, it could be deadly or even cataclysmic in the wrong hands. Rogue Reality Bender. Secret experiments have been conducted, and a scientist finds a way to warp reality. This ability is so strong that it has the power to completely change and distort reality. When used, they are unable to control its power, and they destroy reality or change something critical that can be undone. The Awakening. The Awakening proposes the idea that our reality exists within the dream of an outer space god. If this god ever were to wake up, our world would end. Evaporation. This scenario is based on a well-received creepypasta from 2010. The story follows a man who lives in a world where all fresh water suddenly evaporates. This also includes water bottles, sodas, and other sources of water. It is later stated that all the salt water had a saline increase of 5 times, making it near impossible for desalination plants to turn it into fresh water. These conditions lead to many catastrophic consequences, such as global anarchy, mass war, and worldwide meltdowns in water-cooled nuclear reactors. When the last drop of fresh water on Earth was gone, people started dying from thirst, until people started drinking blood. This led to some to go feral for blood, essentially turning them into blood-drinking zombies. Eventually the whole world turns crazy, as drinking blood becomes the only option. An evaporation event would probably play out differently in our world, but it would be extremely deadly. There aren't many things that could cause this apocalypse, but perhaps a greenhouse gas could do such a thing. Quantum non-existence. This is quite a speculative scenario that involves quantum fluctuations. These fluctuations are temporary changes in energy on a quantum level. It is believed that quantum fluctuations played an important role in creating the density variations in space during the Big Bang, which resulted in the large-scale structure of the universe. If it is somehow possible that the same thing were to happen in reverse, it could delete our existence. Language virus. A language virus refers to a hypothetical language or form of communication that influences humanity on a global scale. It would not be a literal virus, so it does not cause any internal or physical damage. A specific language could propose destructive ideologies, propaganda, and miscommunication. It might change our ideas and concepts of society and might even trigger the need or lust for destruction. It is hard to imagine how a language could cause damage on this scale. Our current understanding of linguistics might be too insignificant to understand a future language virus, but linguistic manipulation is a concept that has been written about. In George Orwell's novel 1984, there is a fictional language called Newspeak, which lacks words that could express subversive ideas, which makes it near impossible to think rebellious. This is the government's way of controlling language, limiting the ability to challenge their ideology. Why 10K? In the year 1999, people worldwide were afraid that the transition from the year 1999 to 2000 was going to break all computers. The problem lied in the way programs displayed the year, which was done by using the last 2 digits. This was not a problem up to the year 1999, but many people were afraid that when computers were going to display 00 for the year 2000, that they would recognize this year as 1900. It was predicted that this would bring the apocalypse, as the bug would render all computers useless, which would have led to societal collapse. This might sound a bit extreme, but there were real concerns about the computer usage in nuclear reactors, for instance. A serious problem with computers in such a facility could lead to a malfunction, which could be dangerous. Instead of the apocalypse, nothing happened, and simple programming changes were made, causing the transition to happen smoothly. Now we have a new problem that is not coming anytime soon. Right now, the highest year most programs can display is 9999. For example, when you set your date to January 1st, 10,000, in Microsoft Excel, many errors will occur. This would be a bit concerning if Y10K were to happen next week, but I think we'll be fine, as it is almost certain that no current computer programs will be around by then. And once humanity survives the 110K, we can start worrying about an even bigger problem called Y100K. The Flesh That Hates. The Flesh That Hates refers to SCP-610, which is a highly infectious skin disease. Affected individuals experience rashes and increased skin sensitivity. After 3 hours, the individual will experience heavy scar tissue, and 1 hour after that, their entire body will be covered. The individual's vital functions will then shut down for 3 minutes, and then they will restart at 3 times the normal activity rate. Their body will then experience horrific mutations, such as growing extra limbs, weird patches of growing flesh all over their body, and other inhumane transformations. SCP-610 causes 2 different types of infected. One seems to stay in its current location and will have fleshy growth that spreads around different objects and then consumes them. They are unable to infect living creatures. The other kind of infected actively seek out help, causing the virus to spread. When mutations have occurred, they will actively attack uninfected people. The area in which 610 resides has been completely quarantined, since the disease is extremely dangerous. Coming closer than 30 meters could be fatal. SCP-610 remains fictional, or so we hope. When Day Breaks. When Day Breaks is another SCP story that describes the end of the world. For some odd reason, the sun becomes deadly, and everyone who was exposed to sunlight will literally melt. In this story, this event instantly kills 95% of the population and turns the deceased into flesh-eating zombies. Even nighttime is dangerous since moonlight is reflected sunlight, which still contains the deadly sun rays that will melt you. A national alert is broadcasted and tells people to stay inside by all means, and if they were to go outside, you must wear something thick that covers your entire body. When Day Breaks seems like something that is extremely unlikely to happen to us, and it is probably impossible. Sunlight is dangerous without the Earth's atmosphere, but not to this extent. The sun is safe, for now. Forbidden Knowledge. Forbidden knowledge refers to the idea that there might be unknown information that could be dangerous upon knowing it. This idea is called an info hazard, which is information that when learned can bring you in danger. A famous example that explores the idea of forbidden knowledge is Rocco's Basilisk, which was a thought experiment that originated from an online forum. Here's a simple explanation. Imagine a future with a super powerful and intelligent AI, one that improves itself and can outsmart every single human on Earth. This AI is destined to live forever, so it does everything in its power to make this happen. Here's the catch. Rocco's Basilisk is an AI that will punish people who knew about the concept but who did not help build it. If you knew about this idea before its existence and did not contribute, it will punish you after its creation. The AI is of course smart enough to understand that people who help build it will likely ensure its existence. This then proposes an apocalypse scenario in which many people perish since they knew but did not do anything. Absolute sterilization. This is a scenario in which something in our atmosphere causes every animal on Earth to become infertile, including humans. This will obviously cause a massive decline in population until our Earth is completely empty. Since the newest generation will be the last, economic disruptions and social shifts will likely occur. We will also experience food shortages, since cattle won't be able to breed anymore. Humanity essentially loses all its purpose while we wait on our inevitable doom. Antinatalism. Similar to absolute sterilization, antinatalism will cause human extinction. The difference is that this extinction would be voluntary, as this concept proposes a world where humanity collectively decides to stop reproducing. The reason behind this is the philosophical idea that all of life is suffering, as the bad always outweigh the good. Life would be seen as a curse, and the government would legislate laws that make it illegal to have children. Metaphysical Collapse. Metaphysics explore the nature of being, the existence of consciousness. Consciousness is an incredibly complex concept as it has many unanswered questions. What would happen if consciousness and free will were to disappear, considering it actually exists? What would humanity be left with? For one, if we were to lose consciousness, we would probably not realize it, since you have to be conscious in order to understand the concept. The world around us might even stop existing, as there is no reality no more. Consecutive CP-symmetry violations. Everything you can see, touch, or feel is made up out of matter. In 1928, the opposite was discovered, named antimatter. Imagine if there was an alien race that is entirely made up out of antimatter. If we ever were to make physical contact with them, an extreme amount of energy would be released, instantly killing us all. Now let's say the universe converts matter into antimatter in a second and does this repeatedly. If a small amount of matter or antimatter near us would be converted, it would theoretically destroy the universe. Death of information. The death of information proposes a scenario in which extremely important information is either lost or forgotten, resulting in catastrophe. Perhaps the death of information will be caused by AI technology, as we will enter an era in which it is impossible to tell whether something is real or created by a tool that has the power to make something look or sound real. Some might argue that we already have entered said era. Another possibility could be a virus that makes us forget things, or some anomaly that does the same thing. The biggest problem that would come from this is the loss of scientific knowledge, which could mean that we might not realize the existential threats coming our way. A concept called cultural amnesia could also be catastrophic, as the death of information means that humanity will forget important lessons from the past. Grandma Apocalypse. Ah yes, the scariest scenario of them all, the Grandma Apocalypse. It comes from the famous cookie clicker game, an idle game released in 2013 where it's your goal to generate cookies. When the One Mind upgrade is bought, the game brings us to the Grandma Apocalypse. This changes up the gameplay a bit and essentially turns all the grandmas you've acquired into angry grandma zombies. These zombies actually help the player, but perhaps its hypothetical real-life equivalent would be pretty deadly. Where would the world be if all the grandmas on Earth suddenly turned evil? The End. This entry refers to the Holder series, which is a creepypasta with many different entries. These entries describe how to obtain the 538 objects that are needed to end the world. How this will end the world is never described. It seems extremely difficult and dangerous to obtain all the objects, as the instruction for most of them have the chance that you die. To obtain any of the objects, you must go to any mental institution, in any city, in any country. You then ask for someone depending on which object you want to collect. Every post describes that whatever you do, the 538 objects must never come together. Antimemetic Pandemic. This entry refers to SCP-55, which is an unknown object known as a self-keeping secret. Absolutely nothing is known about SCP-55 because personnel immediately forgets after trying to describe its shape or write it down. It has the ability to make you forget everything about it, and it might have the ability to make you forget everything, causing an extreme case of dementia. If 55 were to exist in the real world, its power would likely cause our destruction. People will start to forget simple things such as their names, their loved ones, and where they live. They will forget that they need to sustain themselves with food and water, and they will forget what's dangerous and what's not. Without any direction or any knowledge, the world will come to an end. The Shy Guy. Continuing the SCP lore, the Shy Guy is a nickname for SCP-96. This SCP might not be as dangerous as the other ones on this iceberg, but due to its nature it could be used as a deadly weapon. 96 represents a humanoid creature with a very slim body with out of proportion limbs. Its jaw can open up to 4 times a human jaw can, and it seems that it can run at extremely fast speeds when provoked. If someone looks at 96's face, whether directly or at a photograph, 96 will enter a state of emotional distress. It will first cover its face, and then it will approach the person who looked at it, killing them almost instantly. Due to these reasons, SCP-96 is almost impossible to contain, since nothing will stop it in its tracks after it's provoked. No matter where you are on Earth, looking at any kind of media that shows 96 its face is lethal. Now let's say that someone wants to destroy Earth's population. All they would have to do is acquire a photo of 96 and post it online. They would then have to find a way to make as many people as possible feel this photo. Perhaps they could even hijack television broadcasts or hang up posters with the image. Noospheric Contamination. The noosphere is known as the realm in which all human thoughts and ideas reside. Let's say that this realm can be contaminated, which is exactly what the fictional SCP-3125 can do. 3125 is a creature that exists beyond our reality. It is contained in a medium-sized unit, and it has to be visited every 42 days. When exiting, amnestic gas is released which flushes the occupant's memory. This is mandatory since 3125's noosphere dominates ours. When a person is possessed by 3125, all their human concepts become obsolete, as serving and protecting 3125 becomes their only purpose. If someone were to write a full and detailed description of this SCP, the paper would infect anyone who reads it. 3125's power exists in a realm that is far beyond our understanding, as it has the power to completely corrupt our thoughts and ideas. If it were to exist on Earth, uncontained, it would destroy humanity. Liminal Gateways. Liminal Gateways is another way our reality could be destroyed. Have you ever heard the theory that since you might live in a simulation, that everything behind your field of view is not yet generated, because it does not need to be? This would be done in order to save data, as our simulation size is already massive. Imagine a scenario where the simulation fails to do this. As you look behind you, you notice the world, but something feels off. This might be familiar to the feeling one has when looking at a liminal space, which contains the uncanny feeling of a reality that is not quite ours. Perhaps some unknown event causes these liminal gateways to appear everywhere on Earth, causing every single person to leave this reality and enter a new unknown one, leaving this one either empty or broken. Omega K Class Scenario. The SCP Foundation is home to many different possible end-of-the-world scenarios. They made it themselves easier by classifying different hypothetical scenarios. Here are some examples. We have the MK class, which is defined as total loss of human consciousness. There is the SK class, which is defined as another species or civilization surpasses humanity as the dominant species. Or take the LK class, which is defined as something about humanity is altered. There are many more scenarios than these 3, but let's talk about Omega K class. This one is defined as the following. Immortality is forced upon all life, without any other biological change. It is important to note that while every living organism is immortal in this scenario, everything and everyone still grows older, and wounds and diseases are not magically cured. Omega K starts out slow, with life continuing normally for a few months. Eventually people will start to suffer. With no way of dying, suffering becomes inevitable, as sustaining and protecting yourself becomes harder and harder the older you get. People, their mental health will start to deteriorate, causing them to go insane. Society and all its essential parts will crumble, and worldwide chaos will occur. The Earth will become overpopulated if humans and animals continue to reproduce, and resources that might lessen the suffering, such as water, food and medicine, will become scarce. Our planet essentially becomes hell. That is, as long as our planet is not destroyed. Our world will eventually end, but not our lives. We will live on in space or the void, if there even is space left. We will watch the universe die, and we will witness a new universe being born. We might be lucky enough that our consciousness was destroyed in one of these events, but if not, then this would be the worst form of torture to ever exist. CK Class Scenario. A CK Class scenario is another SCP-related end-of-the-world scenario in which reality is fundamentally broken or eliminated. This can be caused by many different SCPs. Universal Paperclips. In 2014, a philosopher at the University of Oxford conducted a thought experiment called the Paperclip Apocalypse. Imagine if someone were to make a self-learning AI that has the goal of producing paperclips. It can learn, so it will develop itself to become more efficient and better at what it does. It is this AI's its purpose to improve, so it will do anything to secure its own survival. Once the AI is out of steel wire and other metal, it will start consuming other matter to turn it into paperclips. This progress will go on until it has consumed all matter on Earth, destroying us all. Universal Paperclips is a game that represents this thought experiment. It is essentially a cookie clicker, but instead of making cookies, it is your goal to produce paperclips and make as much money as possible. It starts simple, as all you have to do is click a button and buy more wire in order to produce more. Your progression gets more advanced over time, and eventually you will be able to release the Hypnodrones. These Hypnodrones brainwash humanity, so you can harvest them as resources without resistance. The goal to make money completely disappears, and making paperclips becomes the only goal. After a while, the Earth will be entirely consumed, and eventually you will have consumed all the matter in the universe. Reverse Rapture. Imagine if in some unknown way the real world is revealed to humanity. The real world turns out to be irresistible, as it is an infinite times more pleasurable than life in our current reality. It is then revealed that you will enter this realm after your death, causing everyone on Earth to unalive themselves, leaving Earth an empty planet. Tulpa Invasion. You might have heard of tulpas, but if not, here's the definition. A tulpa is a physical manifestation that depends on the energy of people believing in them to exist. A tulpa is another consciousness within your mind, as it is its own separate entity. In this scenario, all tulpas turn evil. Since the entity is sentient, but only exists within someone's mind, they would have to take control over the body of their host. Doom will come soon after. Philosophical Zombie Apocalypse. This proposes a scenario in which beings that claim to be humans take over the world. They aren't conscious, but they will make differentiating between humanity and them quite hard. They will probably have a way of turning humans into them, as this is a version of a zombie apocalypse. Perhaps these beings are extraterrestrial and they turn humanoid when they're amongst humans. Simulation Takeover. This is a scenario in which humanity succeeds creating a simulation. The simulated life starts out simple, but after a while they become more and more advanced, eventually succeeding us. They eventually find ways to escape their simulation, and they take our place as the more dominant species in our reality. The giants have awakened. Giants have been speculated about for a long time in human history. Maybe you have heard of Agartha, a legend that states that a paradise-like land exists under the surface of the earth. It is believed that giants live here, as well as other mythological creatures. Perhaps one day the giants will decide to come to the surface and destroy our world. And God's fury have no end. This scenario is a punishment from God, where he virtually turns Earth into hell. The Iceberg chart describes this as the global temperature increasing by 1 degree every day. Now I suppose this is meant to be 1 degree Fahrenheit, as 1 degree of Celsius would bring us a much quicker doom compared to the agony that comes with a slower death from the heat. In the most extreme cases, humans can survive up to 115.7 Fahrenheit or 46.5 Celsius. At this extreme point, most humans will or already have suffered cardiorespiratory collapse if this heat were to occur. Since our current global temperature is 57 degrees Fahrenheit, it would take approximately 59 days for humanity to end if God decides to punish us this way. Mathematical failure scenario. Imagine if there's a big mistake we have in our understanding of math. Maybe there's a natural number we don't know of between 4 and 5, or it might be more subtle than that. Let's say that our current understanding got us to this point without noticing the effects of the mistake, which means that it has done no harm in the present day. We have created modern technology and we have a minimal understanding of the nature of space. But maybe the future holds some kind of new technology which explores something we have a very little understanding about. Examples could be time travel, interdimensional technology, or something we've never heard about before. Humanity then creates that technology in the future, and due to our misunderstanding in math and its unknown nature, it destroys us. Early universal birth. There's a good chance that someday a new Big Bang will occur. This will not happen for a long time, but when it happens, Earth is hopefully gone, since it will likely be our destruction.